Hello guys and welcome to the long-awaited Royal High cosplay for December. This video is going to be a long one because I'm not just making a single item. I made the entire Winter Guardian dress as one piece. 3 items in one, which is why this took so long compared to other ones I've done in the past. With that said, this was my first time making a dress, let alone anything with this much detail involved, so if you can support this video as much as you can by leaving a comment and watching through the video, that would make this past month of stress and sleep deprivation worth it. And there will be a secret word hidden somewhere in this video for you to find, and make a comment with it if you'd like to do that. So, let's get into the dressmaking, shall we? First off, I rummaged through the pre-made patterns I owned and found 2 which would work for the sleeves and bodice, which I cut out off camera. Using the sleeve pattern, I laid it on top of some paper and used it as a template base to make a pattern with a much wider sleeve to it. After tackling the velvet fabric into an almost neatly folded square, I used the pattern to cut both sleeves out. Bonnie was very intrigued by the floor fabric and also tried to nibble the couple decade old patterns, so I had to tickle her away. But anyway, I cut the bodice pieces out, 2 of each shape. Then it was assembling time, which meant pinning all the pieces together ready for the sewing machine. I also pinned the sleeves as well. And to the sewing machine it went. I've not mentioned the skirt once yet, so here we go. The 2 petticoats I originally bought for this project just wasn't serving enough poof, so I had to buy a crinoline underskirt from Amazon. RIP to my money. But anyway, whilst I was waiting for that next day delivery, I just kind of pinned everything to the mannequin, you know? Okay, maybe I don't remember the timeline correctly because I'm wearing the exact same clothes, but hey, look, there's the crinoline skirt! So, the idea was to put the petticoats on top of the crinoline just to make the poof, but as you can see the crinoline is a little bit too long, so what I did was pin the crinoline to make it shorter. I just used safety pins instead of sewing it because not only was it quicker, but that just allows me to undo the change in case I need to use this crinoline for a different cosplay. And as you can see, pinning it did make a difference, and it also made it a little bit more poofier because obviously I lifted the rings up to be a bit higher, and so it poofed it out more. To make the skirt, I just used the same circle skirt technique I did with Starfrost and Miss Lady Rose, which is to fold the fabric into quarters and mark out a curved line on it, so when you cut it and lay it flat, it's a full circle. And I'm just gonna leave a bit more of this clip in because I'm not gonna deny Bonnie of her internet fame. There we go. Look at the bun. Anyway, time to put the circle on the dress form, and I kind of cut the waist hole a bit too big, so be careful when you're doing the circle skirt technique because I feel like I do this every single time. So yeah, I'm just trying to work my way around that by folding the fabric in, which just kind of screws me over a little bit later on when I'm adding the decal things on top. So yeah, don't mess up your waist holes when you're making skirts. Now, I think what I'm doing here is sewing on the sleeves to the bodice. I'm not entirely sure. I think that's what I'm doing here. Oh, and here's a small clip of some snow. This must have been from November, so everything before this clip and possibly a little bit after, this was all from November. Yeah. I've been working on this dress all month. I then trimmed all the seams and hemmed them on the bodice and sleeves. I have suddenly forgotten all sewing terms, so bear with me. I'm I'm folding over the back bit for the on the back of the bodice is like the lace up bit with the ribbon, and so I'm doing that, and I'm just sorting out the seams on the back there, so I'm just pinning it and then I'm gonna sew it, and oh gosh. Then after that I cut off all the excess fabric and folded it over again so the raw seam would kind of be like trapped inside the... I know there's a term for this, I just can't remember it at all. Oh gosh. Once the edge was all nice and pretty, I sewed the white ribbon on top of it on the outside. Then it was time to add eyelets or grommets, whatever you call them, onto the back. So I marked out where I needed to put them all. Then I just cut a little hole and put the eyelet pieces in and basically stapled it with the eyelet pliers. And yes, my hand did hurt a lot after putting like 18 of these into the bodice. Then I went through the hassle of lacing the entire thing up. Now that the bodice has had a nice bit of progress, it was time to move back to the skirt, which, if you remember earlier, I pinned pleats into on the dress form, and what I'm doing here is just doing a zigzag stitch across the top to keep those pleats in place, just to make it easier for when I attach the skirt and the bodice together. On the inside of the bodice, I marked where I wanted the waistline to be, or like where I wanted the skirt to be attached to the bodice. Then came the task of pinning and sewing those two things together, which wasn't easy by any means. After sewing them together, I cut off all the excess fabric and hemmed it. After I got it back on the dress form, I marked where the edge of the underskirts were, because as you can see the skirt turned out to be a little bit too long. Then I sewed some horsehair braid onto where that line was, and if you don't know what horsehair braid is, it's like this weaved plastic stuff that adds a lot of shape to skirts and stuff. So this will add some like volume to the skirt, so it doesn't just lay flat on top of the petticoats. After that was sewn on, it gave me a pretty good idea of where to cut all the excess fabric off. And now it's fabric time, so I just pinned some fur fabric on around the edge of the top bit and cut it out. For the fur on the sleeves and skirt, I just cut out like long strips of the fabric. And the skirt alone needed 2 strips, so... Like I said earlier, Bonnie was finding the floor fabric very interesting. So, here's more Bonnie. Though I did scare her off when she started trying to, like, eat it and stuff. With all that, I did manage to get all the fabric cut out. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not entirely sure how to easily explain how I sewed the fur onto the skirt and sleeves, but I used a machine to sew the outside seam on. Then I sewed some more horsehair braid in there, like under the fur, before sewing the underside, which I had to hand sew because I didn't want to seam across the outside fur. I guess I just forgot to film what it looked like after I put all the fur on it, so here's a picture instead. And one of the back. Now we're on to detail time, so I split the snowflake pattern into 2 separate pieces. And just like how I did with the appliques for the Winter Guardian boots earlier this year, I just started embroidering onto this like mesh fabric, and to create those translucent diamond shapes I cut out some more of that mesh fabric and sewed that onto the mesh that's in the embroidery hoop. For the dots, I just hot glued some gems onto it, and then I cut it out. I had to repeat this quite a few times, and then I had to also do the other shape, and there's Bonnie. The second shape took a bit more work, but I had less time to do these in. So what I did was split the shapes into other little pattern pieces, and I stayed up till about like 4 AM one night just cutting out loads of fabric pieces, so there we are. Now, I'm not going to go into that much detail on this one just because this is the exact same shape that's on the Winter Guardian boots, and you know, earlier this year I did a whole video making those boots, so I'm sure me making this specific pattern is in that video. So yeah. I had also dragged one of the Winter Guardian boot covers downstairs so I could see how I'd done the embroidery on that, so that's what you're seeing in the top left corner. Another thing that I had done off camera was make these bows, just because you've seen these bows in the Winter Guardian boot video. Same concept. And here's how the finished applique looks. Now, I had made the belt off camera, and how I did this was I just made a little tube of that fabric, and I put some like horsehair braid in it, which is how it got its shape. There's a bow on the back of it, same bow, and the way it does up is like one of those fastener things. I don't remember what they're called, but yeah, that's basically the belt. One of the most boring and tedious parts of this was definitely sewing the appliques onto the dress. It wasn't fun at all, but it was something that I had to do. The bows for the sleeves didn't take that long to sew on, so at least that was an okay part. Look at those lovely sleeves. That definitely didn't take me an entire day to sew the appliques on. Same concept with the skirt, just a ton of tedious sewing. With the sleeves and skirt all done, it was time to move on to the bodice, which was the most difficult part because I was working with the stretchy t-shirt fabric. And yeah, it is definitely a difficult shape to cut out of that kind of fabric. Not gonna lie, this was the absolute worst part to do because with every single stitch I was trying my best not to move the fabric, but also not to catch the fabric of the dress form in there, because I wasn't gonna cut my dress form up. And yeah, this took an entire day plus a bit of night to sew this heart thing on. Here's a look at some other pieces that I couldn't be bothered to film properly, and this is basically where I stopped with the bodice pattern. If I had started to do all the back patterns, then this wouldn't have been ready for Christmas Eve, so here is the reveal of the dress. So everything on this is basically finished except for obviously the back of the bodice, but I can always do that at another time. But for now it's not really necessary because I only really plan to wear this with long wigs, so you won't even notice. Now, some of you will remember that I did in fact make the Winter Guardian boots all the way back in March this year. Not to mention that I do have a playlist for the Winter Guardian set IRL. This all does mean that I still need to make the antler head piece, and I also need to make a video revealing the full set. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I was listening to music whilst filming this, so I'm kind of just jamming out in my dress. So yeah, hopefully you will see the last piece of the Winter Guardian set after Christmas. At the time of editing this, I haven't started on that headset yet, but it shouldn't take as long as this dress has. But once that headpiece is done, the set reveal video should be pretty close behind that, because obviously it won't take too much to do that. But anyway, let me know what you think of this dress and if you found a hidden word. If you watched through this whole video and left a comment, just know that's what makes making these things worth it to me and helps me push through such difficult projects like this one. I've been slowly making this since it first came out a year ago, and so I want to thank long-time viewers for being so patient with this set cosplay, because it seems like a lot of people just want to see new sets as soon as they're new and then just don't really care about them later on when there's other new sets, so Winter Guardian supremacy, I guess. Anyway, here's how the skirt looks like without any poof. I just want to quickly say thank you for 30,000 subscribers. If you're one of the people who aren't subscribed, then maybe subscribe, I don't know. You won't have to depend on the algorithms to put my videos in your recommended, and also you'll help us hit future goals. Of course, stay tuned for the rest of the Winter Guardian set and the finale of that. I'd also like to make another video, like with an updated Royal High cosplay collection video like I did last year. Obviously I'll just be showing everything that I made this year. But yeah, I still have a lot planned, and hopefully I'll get to have some sort of break in January, but yeah, I think that's all I have to say for now. I'll let this video end. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video, hopefully.